All right, we are back for episode 48 of Digital Divination. We're that much closer. We're inching closer to it. Oh man, I was thinking we got to do something special for the 50th episode. What do you think we should do?
Well, I don't know. An extra special for the 100th episode. I don't know. I have no reason to think we're not going to get to 100 because this is like all casual and fun, right?
Yeah,
so sure, let's just keep on doing it.
Yeah, well, especially if we like start recording more frequently. You know, if Ryan had let us do weekly like we would have wanted, we'd be at 100 already.
That's true. That's true. Although there's we got to make room for all the other great stuff that the No Direction Network has. So I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm okay taking the turn because there's a lot of other really cool people stuff.
They've had some really neat things of late. So. Hey, it's been at least 24 hours since I last seen you.
I know.
How are you? What's up?
Man, so many things have happened in the past 20. No, actually, it's been, just about very much the same. Actually took today off work. I was off to, sort of take, Paizo's actually really good about allowing for mental health breaks, right? You're like, if things are, kind of overwhelming, just take a step back, take it. It's a sick day, right? Functionally, it's a sick day. Yeah. I actually know a lot of other workplaces that are doing a lot of that, and I kind of needed one. Had some things to take care of, sort of for my own. It's kind of centering myself. The kind of pressures that can happen. You got a backlog of personal emails that are starting to feel like I'm a little bit out of control of how things are going with my life. Some things I wanted to make sure to spend some time with the kids that I feel like I've been kind of, I sort of neglectful on that. There are a lot of things that sort of help me feel better as a person outside of all of the work that I do. Right. I've not freelanced, written a single word today, right? I'm kind of taking a break from that as well. So it's been kind of just a quick pause to breathe, and it's been a good day.
Well, good. Well, I'm sorry I'm making you do work now. This isn't work for you, is it?
No. I would tell you if it were work, I'd have called in sick for this too. Yep.
So anyway, we're recording this on Tuesday, the 25th. Tomorrow is when all the official releases happen for the stuff for the month. Is that right?
That's correct. The 26th is our big day.
Yeah.
The release day. And so, we've had to move those around so often, especially in the last the last year, not only because of the pandemic, but supply chain issues. Some of the things end up getting really compressed, but that tomorrow is the day. That's the street date for a lot of these.
Yeah. So I'm excited because I have a couple of things I've been working on being released, and you have as well, right?
I do. I'm actually really excited about a lot of the stuff. I've got Galactic Magic, which I have.
Yes. Me too.
Right.
Got mine right here.
I didn't. Yep. I didn't do, but anyway, a lot of the fun stuff to come out. I've got a adventure path that I co-wrote with my wife that's coming out.
Yeah.
This is kind of a surprise. We have our great big city book, the Absalom city books, 400 something pages. I didn't write for that. It's the only Lost Omens book I haven't done any writing for, but it is ironically probably the Lost Omens book that I know the best, because I had to get deep into all of the pieces as Absalom was being written for the adventure path work I was doing. So I had to know an awful lot about it and get ahead of some of the turnovers and work with editing about how, when this comes in, it's got to say this type of thing to match up with this adventure path. So weirdly, it's a book that I felt like I kind of already knew a lot of when I picked it up, even though I hadn't written a word of it.
Wow. So I really like that. How the writers and the developers, I presume, will make sure that when multiple things reference something, that they kind of line up.
Right.
That there's line up or build upon each other, rather than, that's in a different multiverse where that happened. So we can do all kinds of stuff because it's okay. It doesn't have to be. We can have 3 different Spider-Man. We got 20 different Spider-Mans. It's okay because they're just different multiverses, right?
That's right. No, we try. Sometimes we sort of miss miss each other on that. Speaking of spiders, the Anati, the spider people that inhabit the Mwangi Expanse, the ancestry description that'll let you play one doesn't give you a particular ability until you're at least 5th level. And the Strength of Thousands adventure path has some of these that are super lower than 5th level, who show up and they can do that thing. And so players are like, wait a minute, I have to wait to do that thing. How did they break that rule? Okay, we're not 100% in our ties together.
Well, but I thought NPCs were kind of different than player characters anyway. Oftentimes, even with their abilities.
Excellent point. That was Starfinder. Starfinder was of the two games. Starfinder was the first to codify. Hey, look, here's what NPCs are going to do, and they don't have to be built like player characters have to be built. There's not that commonality that was so important in 3rd edition, 3.5, than 1st edition Pathfinder. I mean, there are some hidden rules. If you give an NPC a weapon, the weapon ought to do the same kind of damage of the same die type and so on. But whatever arbitrary bonus you need to have it do in order to make the damage math work right. Okay, yes, it is a little laser pistol that does D4, but this NPC does D4 plus 10 points of fire damage with it, or whatever.
Ooh, that would be a lot.
Yes. But if the damage requirement was that NPC of that CR do 12 points, that's correct. Right. D4 plus 10.
Right. Well, cool. Well, so you have those things come out, and I'm excited because Galactic Magic came out, and it's a Starfinder thing, which we like to talk about here. It's also the book that I had the largest contribution to of everything that I've written so far.
Oh, so, like the most number of words you contributed was for Galactic Magic?
And not that they all got in, but I still wrote a lot for it.
Well, tell me what you wrote, Joe. What is it? What did you do in here?
Oh, well, so I had, I think, 4 basic assignments there. I did the new fighter archetypes. The fighter, what do you call the fighter things again? The fighting styles.
Okay,
the soldier fighting styles.
There we go.
So I did the spell brawler, and I did the archer, which I'm really, really excited about. I just love the timing on this. How the book comes out just after Hawkeye, the series ends. So as soon as the book came out, I thought, oh man, everyone's going to be making a Hawkeye. I better grab me some names here in Society Place so I can make my character, right? So my Hawkeye character is Clinton Barton, right? So
okay, all right, fair enough.
I've got that reserve. But along with that, so I also put in some new bows to make it kind of fun to play an archer,
right?
In Starfinder, and the neat thing about it, and I wasn't sure if this was going to fly, so I made them apocalypse bows.
Yep.
So. Are you familiar with Apocalypse crystals?
Yeah, the ones that turn Solarian weapons into force. Is that right?
Yeah, force effect, right?
Yep.
So, so that's what these bows do. So,
I'm looking at it as we speak with the archer image in there, and I actually was going to ask you about Apocalypse bow as politely as I could. And the reason I thought I'd have to be polite is because the way that it's a banner of weapon information across the top and then like a little bit of text, it almost looks like there was just quite not enough words on the page. And this is the kind of layout where a developer would go, holy crap, I need to fill this extra couple hundred words. You know what? Let's just make a new thing that's going to be a little sidebar and a banner across the top, and that'll do it. But no, you did this. Apocalypse bows all you.
That was a specific request. So they wanted, with the archer, they wanted some new bows. And because only, outside of the core rule book, they have some basic bows. Then there's some Kishali bows from the Dead Suns adventure path. But those are all like archaic. So it's like, those aren't fun.
Right.
So I said, okay, what are the coolest bows I could think of that I would love to have, not thinking they would actually approve it, by the way. So to have, these Apocalypse bows with the quick reload, which basically means you reload and fire as the same action.
So you take multiple, you can take a full attack.
Yeah. So you're not having to stop and notch a bow and go. It's like boom, boom, boom. So again, think of, a high level fighter with, Soldier's Onslaught, you're getting, I keep saying fighter because I'm, this whole Pathfinder thing, right? So Soldier's Onslaught, right? You're getting 3 attacks. Well, that's Hawkeye shooting his 3 arrows at one time, which is kind of one of his signature moves.
Yeah, totally. The thing that you can replicate with this.
Yeah. So I was pretty excited that those made it. Now, I was surprised, especially, so the thing with arrows is you can also use special ammunition with arrows. And so So some of these, the damage doesn't, the highest level, the 17th level bow only does 7d8, but then you can get arrows that do, 5d8, 6d8, 10d8, 14d8 on top of it, very special arrows as well. So I think the archer is going to be a very powerful class here now, or fighting style for folks. And so I'm excited to see that.
Although arrows of that damage magnitude, functionally you're firing raw credits at your enemy because it's so expensive.
Super expensive. Yes. Because even making them, right? Hawkeye makes his own arrows, but he still has to get all those UPBs from start, right? They're going to be super spendy. The spell brawler is kind of neat. There's a couple of interesting things in there that I like. But in particular, the thing I was really working on to get in there is the spell siphon ability. Okay. So basically, you hit somebody hard enough, it takes away their highest level spell out of a spell slot. So the whole gank the mage thing is a whole lot more dangerous now. With a
knock the magic right out of them. That's
yes. So those are, and there's a bunch of other stuff related to it, but those are kind of the neat things about those classes. And then I made a whole bunch of additional gear boosts, kind of related to both those classes. In particular, trying to get some really cool stuff for the archer as well. So that was the first thing. So the fighting styles there for the soldiers, and then I did items. So I did all the weapon fusions and then all the armor upgrades. And I actually did quite a bit more than ended up in there, but for space limitations, they couldn't do everything.
Weapon fusions are really hard. There's a lot of them already, and so it's hard to look across all the different types, make sure you're not duplicating something that exists. But at the same time, give it some neat thing that it can do that weapons can't already do because of their types of traits or under existing weapon or other aspects of the game. It's a really tight design space. It's a really difficult one. So I'm really impressed that you're able to do a full page of them.
Well, in two of them that I'm really excited about, and they're relatively kind of low-level fusions. One of them is Agile. Can you guess what that does?
Reduces your your penalty for making multiple attacks with them. That's the Pathfinder 2 way.
Yeah, no, this is how you can add your dex bonus to damage.
Oh, alrighty, okay, that's another good thing. Wait.
And that's one of the things that really kind of I really wanted to get some way in there. Especially thinking of you're playing an operative or playing, somebody that wants very dex based, right? You're typically can hit pretty well, but your damage is a little light.
Mm-hmm.
And then a bending fusion. So basically, can kind of go around soft cover. So you have this is one of the things I always hate, right? You have a party member who's engaged in melee with somebody. They're providing soft cover, which is 4 points of AC, and you're trying to target this person. Well, now if you have a bending fusion, it actually avoids one person in front of you, avoids that soft cover. If there's multiples, then you're out of luck.
So you still haven't quit thinking about archers, even when you're in a different part of the book.
Well, yeah, but these were supposed to synergize with the new classes and or the new fighting styles and be useful for others.
Oh, it actually does. It actually does. I'm a little skeptical about the value of Agile because it's your full action to do that.
Yeah.
So if your dexterity is phenomenal, maybe that'd work okay.
Well, I'm thinking like a technomancer, an envoy. Not an operative has got other things they want to do their full action.
Mm-hmm.
But for these other classes, if you're only using a small arm, if you don't want to spend the extra feet to get a long arms proficiency and an extra feat to get long arm specialization, well, this is the way to give you a pretty good boost to just your shootifying people.
I guess that's true.
Not designed to be overpowering, but to give something else. In terms of I did also the armor upgrades. There's nothing terribly exciting, I think, about those. I put some other cool ones, which I think were too overpowered. So I don't think they
didn't make it into print. Alrighty.
Yeah. But there's a couple of these shadow type of things that basically you kind of go through the shadow plane to shortcut stuff. So I thought that was kind of neat. It kind of mimics some other things that showed up in some of the APs and stuff,
Right.
So
and I did some things like on that theme, but they were types of powered armor that showed up in the armory. And
Oh
so
yeah,
being
yeah.
able to apply, I can see people who thought that was a cool idea, but they didn't want to invest in powered armor. Like, oh, well,
Hmm.
now I don't need to. I could just get this armor
Right.
fusion.
Yep. And probably my most favorite thing, I got to do artifacts, and so I did 3 of them. 2 of them made it in. 1 of them didn't make it in. But my favorite one, and I did it in part because of our friend Mark, who played Julakashti. I made the Honorbringer Vesk Dashko artifact, which is basically, so when I played D&D back in the day, I always wanted to get the Hammer of Thunderbolts. That was like the big massive thing I always wanted to get to use. And so I wanted to make something like this ultimate, when you're at your highest level and you have everything and you want to have, what is the ultimate weapon you can get as a soldier, especially a vest soldier like his character was. That's what I made. So
Okay.
that was my whole purpose, and it's got, some really kind of neat lore, kind of steeped in the history of the Veskarium and kind of how they conquered the planet and all this kind of stuff. How their emperors do things. So it's got some special things in that, but that was probably like kind of my most favorite thing.
The thing I like about Honorbringer is that it
Yeah.
gives you, when you've got it, it gives you a new ability. And just the requirement to use the ability tells part of the story of the weapon, because
Yes.
it's as a swift action after you've used Honorbringer to kill at least 3 enemies in the last minute. Da 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 da. You're already in the thick of things there. You can already see somebody fighting with this has a very specific goal in mind if they're doing an awful lot of killing to get to this ability.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of neat. But you wrote some stuff for this book too.
I did. My stuff is really scattered. Yours is sort of neatly compartmentalized among different spreads.
Well, that stuff was. I have more scattered stuff. So.
I do. The thing that I was really pleased with being able to write is a lot of the spells that are in here. Galactic Magic, by its nature, is going to have a lot of spells. But I didn't get to write anything big and flashy. Quite the opposite. What I did is I agreed to write all the 0 level spells. And that's super hard, as it turns out. There is a lot of weird overlap in the design space between what 0 level spells can do and what basic equipment can do. And not weapons and armor and stuff, but like, all right, well, you've got, like a zip tie that you want to bind somebody up with. All right, well, a good 0 level spell might be just bind somebody up, right? Like it was a zip tie. You've got, a good 0 level spell might be you just stick one thing to another thing, right? You don't want it to be, you want it to be a thing that is either not particularly powerful if somebody can do it over and over and over all day long, or the kind of thing that once you've done it once, you don't need to necessarily do it again because the reason's already been set. I heard a really good comparison years and years ago about why soda vending machines are the way they are and why newspaper dispensers are the way they are. The newspaper dispensers, you put in the quarter, 2 quarters, whatever, the whole front opens and there's a whole stack of newspapers in there. Well, more than one doesn't really do you any good.
Right.
So that's okay. Whereas a soda vending machine, you want to make it very carefully designed to give you only and exactly one. You wouldn't want to have the whole door open to get at everything because people would just take them all and save them for later. There's something that's much more timely about the newspapers. And I had that distinction very clearly in mind when I was writing these, because all the 0 level spells are either the things you have to keep in mind that somebody's going to do over and over and over. They're sodas.
Right.
They're going to be so, and then you risk making it too valuable. Or versus the things where, once you've done it, you don't need to do it again. Like adhere, right? You stick a thing to another thing. You don't have to keep doing that. But anyway, that was part of the design principle behind 0 level spells. It did let me get a little bit of a glimpse, appropriately, a predictive glimpse ahead to the precog, because every spellcasting class has a basic 0 level spell. And because I was doing the 0 level spells, I had to know enough about what the precog was going to do to be able to identify, all right, well, what thematically their good 0 level spell is. And it's called Injury Echo. you're reminding somebody of some hurt that they either had or will have, and manifesting some damage on them. That's very precog feeling, and I like that. They kept that. That was really good. In fact, this is to show sort of how gentlemanly Joe Passini was about this. I wrote that and I turned it in, and I was actually, I think I did it as part of my milestone, so I wasn't done yet, or was only very recently done. He wanted to put out the playtest for the precog, which sort of necessarily required this injury echo spell. And so he came to me and he said, "Hey, Ron, I'd like to use your spell and release it with the playtest document we're doing, which is otherwise wholly done in-house. I need to get your permission because you haven't actually been paid yet for those words. Is it okay if I use this even though you haven't been paid yet for it?" I mean, that speaks a lot to Joe Passini's integrity that he asked that. And of course I let him, and everybody got to see what it would do. The other piece of it connected to the spells, which is one of the several alternate rules for spellcasting, is increasing the strength of cantrips as you get higher and higher level. So your cantrips are generally not as good as a pistol of the equivalent level when you get it. So you could use it instead of a pistol. If you wanted to be really rigorous about having your best possible damage, you would just keep buying a better pistol. But I think most people don't care to do that, especially if you're a spellcaster. You've already sort of committed yourself to not being a gear character. You've committed yourself to being a spell character and being able to reliably injury echo people all the way up, or reliably use any of the other sort of damage doing ones, the one that creates a little accident that witch warpers can do and things like that. Having that be reliable all the way up, I'd rather have it, right? I almost want to be able to, anytime I play spellcaster, to talk to the GM and say, "Hey, will you please use this alternate rule?" It makes for a lot more flavor. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So how do alternate rules work like this? So it's in there, and so that becomes a like case by case basis for adopting. It's not like, oh, we're not suddenly changing it for everybody. We're just giving some options to do stuff.
Right. And it's going to come, and we don't ever expect that people rely on alternate rules or optional rules unless we're very clear up front that that's the case, right? This is sometimes they're just good. As a fine example of that in Pathfinder, one of the alternate rules in the Game Mastery Guide is to give you all your characters a free archetype. If your campaign's on a pirate ship, everybody gets the pirate archetype. In the Strength of Thousands campaign, because everybody's going to a magic school that is known to teach wizards and druids, we said, look, we're really relying on the fact that everybody's going to get a free archetype of either the druid multiclass or the wizard multiclass. That lets you play a barbarian at this magic school and still have some magic spells to cast. It let us, on the back-end design perspective, be able to load up really high difficulties of skills like nature and arcana because we know somebody's going to have them. Everybody gets them as part of that multi-class. So you feel very educated in those. So we're very clear when we have a specific alternate rule. Otherwise, it usually, I found in practice, either comes down to a thing that a GM sees, likes, and says, "Hey, everybody, I'm getting this game together," or in our current long-running game, now this is the rule going forward, where it's sort of equally addressed by sort of everybody. Maybe a little more often is exactly the thing I said I was going to do, where a player sees it and goes, "Oh, this would be kind of cool for my character. Hey, GM, can you please make this the default rule in your game, this optional rule, because I'd like to take advantage of it." And I feel like a lot of GMs, initially, the response to that is going to be, "How do you intend to break my game by doing this, player?" Which may not be the case. Almost certainly, usually is probably not the case. We're not sort of in the business of saying, "Okay, here's an alternate rule that will be so overpowered it will shatter your game." But anyway, that's how they're generally included.
So in our AP that you're running, are you going to let the casters use that alternate rule? Have you told them that yet?
I haven't, but I'm going to. Okay. Yes.
Now that the book's out?
Now that the book's out, and I feel like I can share it, pretty freely, be able to say, here's what it is. And I expect, frankly what I expect to happen, because we started everybody at 13th level and everybody has
Yeah.
appropriate gear for 13th level,
Yeah.
which means your scaling cantrips are a little bit worse than the gear you just bought at 13th level.
Right.
But by the
Probably.
time
Yeah.
you're 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, at that point, the scaling cantrip, you're kind of looking at your old 13th level pistol and going, well, I haven't really bothered to upgrade my pistol,
Yeah.
but my spell does better now. So sure.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thinking of when we played through Dawn of Flame, there's so many times where we couldn't get gear. Like only gear we got is what we found. That sounds like it would have really helped out casters in that regard.
oh, I think that's absolutely true. That's a good reason for the GM to think about it, because if the intent of a campaign is, no, this is going to be like the desperate hard scrabble survivalist mode,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they'd say no, because scraping and scrounging for every pistol is part of the theme of the game I'm trying to run. So they might say no for a reason like that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a kind of a universally good but not great rule that is kind of innocuous in the background. I kind of hope it becomes a standard for people.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that would be good. So, did you write any other spells other than the 0 level ones?
Nope.
No,
Every spell that I wrote was a 0 level spell.
that's a lot. I mean, still,
Well, and
Yeah.
only like half of them came in, because I
Right.
have to say I wasn't perfect about finding that balance between
Yeah.
the soda vending machine and the newspaper dispensing machine. And so there were a few cases where I saw something I'd contributed where they uh, made it substantially more powerful,
Mm-hmm.
for the purpose of a 0 level spell.
Yeah.
Or some places where they scaled it back, or some places where they didn't include it at all. And I feel like taking a look at that helps me do better at designing low
Right.
level stuff in the future. So,
Yeah, I kind of have the same things. I get to write 3 sets of spells there. So I wrote all the barrier spells.
okay.
So wall of earth, wall of ice. There's wall of steam, wall of fog. All these different type of ones. I also wrote utility spells, which I had to write for different levels, like bypass password or broadcast message. When I was doing the utility spells, I tried to find things. So oftentimes, in one of our campaigns, our technomancer might be gone, or the person that does all the computers checks and things is gone.
Okay.
So and so I'm thinking, oh wow, well, what if you have a campaign you don't have somebody like that? Can a mystic or some other caster maybe fill in with some of these spells? And so that's what I kind of looked at. So to replicate some technology, with some of these utility spells things. So I did a bunch of those, and then I did some spells that were from the vast, or kind of themed from something that either the races in the vast or had to do with different planets in the vast. So
Oh,
those were,
that's a neat idea for a theme.
yeah. So those were the 3 that I did, and like for me, probably about roughly half, I think, got all the way through. Um, the spells from the vast was an add-on. I'd already done all my other stuff, and then apparently somebody else got too busy, and so they added that last set of spells. Again, I'm the on-call last-minute author. It seems like, right? So John contacted me and said, "Hey, can you do these? I got a quick turnaround." So I said, "Okay, I can do that, but can I add one more barrier spell? Because I thought of something after my submission." So, "Oh, sure, you can do that." So the one barrier spell that did make it, it was a wall of text. So I tried to frame it in a different way. So I don't remember. It was I called it something of sigils. Basically, either plane that could either be vertical or horizontal, covered with things, and basically you got so confused that if you tried to read it, you got confused for a minute. The idea being that too long, didn't read. I'm done with that kind of thing. Didn't make it through. I was very disappointed because one of my players who you'll meet in this group that we're getting together here, she actually was talking about it. I said, "Oh, I need to add that," when she's saying wall of text for something. Oh, I can't stand that. So, oh man, why didn't I do that? So I really quickly tried to write it up and get it in, but it didn't make it. It didn't make it. So I'm kind of disappointed by that. Of the vast spells that I did, one that I'm running a cleric right now in the Liberation of Locus 1, I think is the name of it. So I'm running a cleric in that. Not
A
cleric,
mystic,
man,
you mean?
mystic.
Now,
I'm
wait a minute,
getting
wait a
these.
minute. I want to put this for the record. Normally, I'm the
I
one
know.
swapping
I
in
know.
the
Well,
Pathfinder terms for Starfinder, not
well,
you.
it's because we played the Abomination Vault yesterday, so my brain is still stuck in that,
Absolutely
right?
true. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
So I'm playing a mystic, which one of the things that always bugged me about mystic is oftentimes, their big damage spell would be Mind Thrust.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many things that Mind Thrust doesn't work against. So I wanted to make something that would kind of do something different. And there's one race that is kind of really, really tightly connected to a soul gem, and kind of their soul is kind of a really important part of their being and their religion and stuff. And so I made this a spell called Soul Surge, which basically allows people, mystics, to do force damage, a pretty high damage die. I think my 5th level was
Ooh,
doing
3d8 is a first level spell.
Yeah, so it's doing a lot of damage. But for every D of damage you do, you take a hit point of damage. So you're sacrificing part of your self, right, in order to do that additional damage. And I combine that actually with a healing connection mystic who has healing channel and all kinds of stuff, is constantly healing people and doing things. So it kind of works out pretty well. You do damage, even though you're taking hit points of damage, you're still able to fix that. So that's one I really enjoy that made it in, because it scales all the way up. I think the highest level it does 24 d8 damage.
I'm looking at it right now. 24
Yeah.
d8. That's amazing. I mean, it would do you
Yeah.
24, right?
Right. But when you're 20th level, that's like
kind of
nothing.
nothing. Yeah.
But it's like, wow, So it's a big gun for mystics. Anybody who's, always, who's like with me says, man, my mystic can't hurt anybody hardly, especially if they're, undead or somehow, immune to mind affecting stuff. That's my big gun. And well, now there's a big gun. There's
You
a
got
big
one.
gun.
Good.
Yeah. And now you did something else too. I think it's like one of the favorite things you like to write about. You did.
Yeah, this was actually fun. There's a number of little entries for the deities in here, which was great. I think it's on deities that already exist that you've heard about before.
Right.
They present it with, all right, well, from what are the worshipers like? What are sacred sites like? It's some very specific. They take some of the things from Pathfinder 2nd Edition. What are the edicts, right? What is a follower of this deity supposed to do? Anathema. What are the followers of this deity in trouble if they do? But they also presented a whole bunch of other deities that were either really minor and not a lot was known about them, or otherwise were pulling forward. And I got to write about Xiphus, who is it's just one column, but it was a delight because Xiphus is all about accidental death. And just the Xiphus's followers, villains through and through, are all about creating the opportunity for accidental death. So in the future, they're all about setting up a reactor to overload and, kill a bunch of people with radiation, or sabotaging a life support system or something like that. The part of the deliciously evil fun in this, though, is to think that in the future, where they've got the equivalent of the internet, the followers of Xiphons, they're called. Xiphons will want to boast about what they've done, take claim for these accidents. Oh, no, that was no accident. That was a thing I did in reverence to our God. So they'll go on like secret message boards using codes to be like, oh, here's this accident that I set up. And they can't help but boast about things they've set up but haven't triggered yet. And so there's this whole subculture of cybersecurity experts who are like, holy crap, we see what this Xiphon is boasting about having set up. You got to evacuate this area, or don't let that ship launch, or whatever. And I think that's kind of a fun thing to add to a campaign. So it was really neat.
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of a neat take on that. That's wild.
So, but there's a lot of other fun deities throughout that are new that I didn't write, that I'm seeing for the first time, that I'm like, oh, that's fun. Oh, that's a great idea. So
yeah, that's, I've seen other people's reaction to it. And I think the deity section is really, the way it's been fleshed out, I think has really been satisfying for a lot of folks.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of fun, but it's a great book. It's one of the ones like Armory that I feel like I'm going to need to keep closest at hand for frequent reference.
Yeah, I just got my Starfinder spell cards, and it's like there's not a single one from Galactic Magic. I need those ones now.
That's right. That what they I mean, they warned you, right? The
Yeah,
box says it's from the core rulebook and character operations manual.
Yeah.
And there's a supplemental box that they've announced that's coming down the line that'll contain all the Galactic Magic and other spells.
Yeah.
So you'll get it. You'll get it.
Yeah. Well, neat. So the other thing I'll say that I have coming out tomorrow, which I'm really excited about, is the first adventure I wrote. It's a really small one, but it's Starfinder Bounty #1, the Cantina job. And I won't spoil it for anybody, but it's I turned in something. Jenny Jarzabski was the initial developer, and then Jessica Catalan took over for it. And man, I thought I did a good job. She did a great job, really making things I thought of and was trying to frame look a lot cooler than I could have.
Oh, that's really neat.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited. But I have one Easter egg that now that it's officially coming out, I'm gonna let go. So maybe people will hear about it. So the main protagonist in this is actually named after a Marvel character. So it's not the exact wording, but
it's not exact. All right.
No, it's not. I mean, it was inspired by it. It's kind of a collection of first and last name together. But if you can figure out that character, then you can figure out specifically something about this main protagonist's ability, which is kind of a mystery until the end.
Oh, that's so clever.
Yes. So
somebody to go, wait a minute, isn't that? Although you tend to bury your references pretty deep, all of your character names nobody ever gets, and
no. So that's why I'm saying this. So I'm saying it's a Marvel character, and once they see the ability, I think somebody who's a real fan, like maybe Jake Tondro, will get it figured out. We'll figure, oh yeah, that's this person. This is so I put their real name, so if they figure out, oh, this is this person's Marvel character, and then they figure, oh, the real name, oh, that matches up. That makes sense. So
they know that they're right once they see that.
But this person's also showed up in a major motion picture as well, but probably nobody knows this name. Nobody really ties it together that it's the same person.
Well, now I need to go. I mean, I needed to go look anyway, because when I was talking about the bounties generally, as soon as Stephanie found out that there was a Starfinder bounty, she's like, oh, well, why aren't we doing all of these for our kids? I'm like, because there's only the one, and it just came out.
Yes.
So.
Oh, I would love to run it for your kids.
Oh, I think they'd love it.
Oh, that would be a lot of fun, because I want to run it locally. The problem is, to level up, if you're doing it for credit, right? The society folks want to do them for credit. Well, you need 3 of them. Well, the second one doesn't come out till like next month or the month after. I think they're only doing 6 a year. It's going to be a long time to level up with bounties.
Right.
So it's really designed kind of for an entry level to show people what the game is about. Runs about an hour and 15 minutes. So it's similar to like a quest pack or the Dungeon Delve that maybe that you were running that at PaizoCon.
Oh yeah, yep.
So kind of a short thing like that. But I'd be, if your kids are up for it,
I think that would be great. Let's do it.
Give it a go. All right. Well, this has been fun. I finally feel really excited. I finally get to talk about this thing that I worked on like so long ago, and I was just so excited for it to come out.
Well, and I remember you talking about it, how they tapped you to do it, and then there was a big wait, and then you did it, and there was another big wait. I mean, just things going on within the company and so on.
Yeah.
And then they came back to you, and you told me, you're like, oh, this is finally going to be a thing. And then there was another big wait.
Yeah, they delayed it. And, but it's neat. At least I got asked to do additional work on this particular thing. And the stuff that made it in is I'm super excited. I made stuff I want to play. And so I'm super excited to play it now.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat. All right. Well, great. If
Well,
something happens to one of your characters, I know we're going to be bringing a soldier or archer, and there's nothing I can do about it. So
Archer's coming. Archer's going to come. So, all right. Well, this has been fun. I'm John.
And I'm Ron, and this is Digital Divination.